Swamin iti namine.
Namaste Saraswate Deve.
Namaste Saraswate Devi.
Gauravani Pracharine.
Gauravani Pracharine.
Nirvishesha Shunyavadi.
Nirvishesha Sunyavadi.
Paschatya Deshatarine.
Paschatya Deshatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya.
Prabhu Nityananda.
Prabhu Nityananda.
Shri Advaita Gadadara.
Sri Advaita Gadadhara.
Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda.
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So we'll start with 45th verse. Please repeat after me. Sve sve karmani abhirataha.
Sve sve karmani abhirataha.
Samsiddhim labate naraha.
Samsiddhim labate naraha.
Swakarma nirata siddhim.
Swakarma nirata siddhim.
Yata vindati takshuno.
Yata viddati takshuno.
Sve sve karmani abhirataha.
Sve sve karmani abhirataha.
Samsiddhim labate naraha.
Samsiddhim labate naraha.
Swakarma nirata siddhim.
Swakarma nirata siddhim.
Yata vindati takshuno.
Yata viddati takshuno.
So Krishna is saying here, last context wise we have studied about different categories of divisions in the society. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Now Krishna is saying what specific duty one has to do accordingly. On that basis, Krishna is saying here, by following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. Sve sve karmani abhirataha. Samsiddhim labate naraha. How one can become perfect in their own respective prescribed duties. Swakarma nirata siddhim yata vindati takshuna. I'm going to explain to you. Please listen from me. This is what Krishna is saying. So next verse. Yata pravrittir bhutanam.
Yata pravrittir bhutanam.
Ena sarvam idam tatam.
Ena sarvam idam tatam.
Swakarmana tam abhyarcha.
Swakarmana tam abhyarcha.
Siddhim vindati manavaha.
Siddhim vindati manavaha.
Once again. Yata pravrittir bhutanam.
Yata pravrittir bhutanam.
Ena sarvam idam tatam.
Ena sarvam idam tatam.
Swakarmana tam abhyarcha.
Swakarmana tam abhyarcha.
Siddhim vindati manavaha.
Siddhim vindati manavaha.
So yata pravrittir bhutanam. According to one's characteristics, pravritti means it is personality traits which one has developed over last many lives. So he has that internal characteristics, what he is about, his qualities, his ideology, his mentality, his behavioral pattern. So whatever he has, swakarmana tam abhyarcha, by worship, by performance of their respective duty, siddhim vindati manavaha, one can achieve perfection by this process. So by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and one who is all pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, can attain perfection. So everybody, by doing the responsible respective duties, one can achieve perfection. This is what, in the process of worshipping of the Lord, the point is you have to do your respective duty and you have to worship the Lord. Both are very important here. So here the nature of the Lord has been explained. He is the beginning of all living entities. By various statements, what we see in Bhagavad Gita itself and Vedanta Sutra, Srimad Bhagavatam. In 15.7, Krishna also says living entities are my fragmental parts and parcels. So 15.7, what is that exact verse? Mama ivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. My amsha sanatanaha jiva bhuta. So that's why Krishna is saying they are all my fragmental parts and parcels. And next, Vedanta Sutra also says everything started from him. Janma adi asyataha. He is the source of everything. Janma adi. Even in 7th chapter, Krishna says, Lord is pervading by his external and internal energies. Everywhere are his energies. So, Lord is all pervading. That is the perspective we hear here. Then, when you understand the position of the Lord, capacity of the Lord, what is the result of that process? So, when you understand how great is the Lord, automatically we start worshipping. So, we worship Supreme Lord with all his energies. Then, how do Vaishnavas worship? Worship the Lord, especially with his internal energy, like Sita Rama, Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayana. But what about external energy? His external energy is a perverted reflection of internal energy. The external energy is a background, but the Supreme Lord, by the expansion as Paramatma, is situated everywhere. In all the demigods, human beings, and animals. So the recommendation is one should therefore know that as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, it is his duty to render service unto the Supreme in full Krishna consciousness. Then what is the perfection of life? How one can achieve this perfection of life? Everybody should think that he is engaged in a particular type of occupation by the Lord of Master of the Senses, Rishikesha. And by the result of the work in which one is engaged, the Supreme Lord should be worshipped. Falena, by our work, karma phala, we have to serve the Lord. So if one thinks always in this way, in full Krishna consciousness, by the grace of the Lord, he becomes fully aware of everything. Yasmin vijnate sarvamevam vijnatam bhavati. If you know Krishna, you will know everything. So in that way, by engaging in Krishna consciousness, we will get awareness of all perspectives of absolute truth. Then once we do this, then reciprocation from the Lord. Once we become perfect in the process, then the Supreme Lord himself takes charge of delivering such a devotee. This is the reciprocation after our perfection. So whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will achieve the highest perfection. Like quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasvadarmena mam nityam nirashati shraddhayanvitaha bhajate shanakaistasya manorajan prasidati. The Supreme Lord informed Maharaj Prithu, this is discussion between Maharaj Prithu and Lord Vishnu. He is saying, my dear Rajan, my dear King Prithu, when one is situated in his own occupational duty, Yasvadarmena mam nityam, who worships me, shraddhayanvitaha, with faith, nirashihi, without any desire, bhajate, one engages in my devotional service. So, without any motive or motive again, he gradually becomes shanakaihi, mano prasidati, he becomes very much satisfied with him. So next, Krishna talks about what is problem if I do not do my duty and if I try to do somebody else's duty. Like here, the context was Arjuna is a Kshatriya. So he started by saying, I will not become a warrior. Instead, I will be like a beggar. See, beggar is the profession of a Brahman. So Arjuna wants to imitate somebody else's profession. He is thinking he's a problem with his own duty. So now what is Krishna's recommendation if I do not follow my specific duty and follow somebody else? So please repeat after me. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Paradharmat swanushtitat.
Paradharmat anushtitat.
Swabhavaniyatam karma.
Swabhavaniyatam karma.
Kurvan apnoti kilbisham.
Kurvan apnoti kilbisham.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Paradharmat swanushtitat.
Paradharmat swanushtitat.
Swabhavaniyatam karma.
Swabhavaniyatam karma.
Kurvan apnoti kilbisham.
Kurvan apnoti kilbisham.
So Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha. Even though one's work is not proper, better to engage in one's own work. Paradharmat swanushtitat. Even though the other's profession is looking very better and my thing is looking something inferior, it is better to engage in one's own provision. Swabhava niyatam karma. According to one's prescribed duty, one has to engage in one's own perspective than accepting somebody else. Kurvan na apnoti kilbisham. Even though if you engage in others' thing, if we avoid doing one's own duty, we become infected by sinful reactions. So Krishna is saying here, it is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. If we do one's respective duties, then it is not a problem. If we try to imitate somebody else, then that is a problem. So, the duties of a Brahmana, the entire society is divided into these 4 categories: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, are based on Gunakarma Vibhagashaha. This is what Krishna said in 4th chapter, 13th sloka. So, this Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam, it is all created by the Lord. On what basis? Gunakarma Vibhagashaha, based on their modes of nature and Guna Karma activities. So, it is better one should do one's duty and not imitate somebody else. So, in that context, as Prabhupada says, one should not artificially claim themselves as part of particular Varna. The occupational duty of a Brahmana is certainly in the mode of goodness. Sometimes must kill animals in the sacrifice also. But for a Kshatriya, there are so many other abominable things. A Kshatriya has to be violent to kill his enemies. A Kshatriya has to tell lies for the sake of diplomacy. Such violence and diplomacy accompany political affairs. But a Kshatriya is not supposed to give up his occupational duty and try to perform the duties of a Brahmana. If a Kshatriya engaged in his occupation kills an enemy, there is no sin incurred. Because he is doing a Dharma Yuddha, then there is no sin incurred. Like similarly for a Vaishya in the business field also, sometimes a merchant has to tell so many lies to make profit. If he does not do so, then there will be no profit. Then how to avoid this abominable nature of different kinds of work and thus purify all the defects of a particular Varna? So one should work according to one's nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Lord. So that is the solution for us. Example. So example of action for this satisfaction of the Lord is Arjuna fighting on the battlefield. But if such a fighting is performed for the sake of Krishna, there is no need to fear of degradation, because everybody who are dying on the battlefield in the hands of Arjuna by seeing Lord Krishna, they all got benefited for their spiritual journey. So in conclusion, based on Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text number 9, where Krishna is saying, so every man should work for the purpose of yajna, yajnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. If you try to engage in personal self, then it becomes bondage. So anything done for personal sense gratification is a cause of bondage. So everyone should be engaged according to the particular mode of nature he has acquired. So decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Supreme Lord. Finally, that's the conclusion. Like in one lecture, Prabhupada says, so as to maintain this body nicely, you must everything in order. The head, brain must be in order, the hands, arms must be in order, the belly must be digesting food and getting energy, and the legs also must walk. Similarly, Sve Sve Karmani Abhirataha. Never mind you are a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. If your aim is to keep the body in order, then either you become Brahmana, either you become Kshatriya or Shudra. Everything is in order. So that is required. Unless these instructions are followed as given by Krishna, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati. He comes there, he leaves this instruction. If you take advantage of this instruction and make your society, family or government, everything according to the instruction of Bhagavad Gita, then everything is perfect. Like Krishna explains to Uddhava in Uddhava Gita in Bhagavatam, he says, Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidhyeta yavata matkata shravanadova shraddha yavan na jayat. So as long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotion service, by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of Vedic injunction. So as long as we have not come out of this bodily perspective and fruitive mentality, we have to work as per the respective duties. Once we are liberated, Jivan Muktaha, then all these material duties and all are beyond, and one becomes beyond this material perspective. So next verse, please repeat after me. Sahajam karma kaunteya.
Sahajam karma kaunteya.
Sadosham api na tyajet.
Sadosham api na tyajet.
Sarvarambha hi doshena.
Sarvarambha hi doshena.
Dhumena agnir ivavrataha.
Dhumena ivavrataha.
Sahajam karma kaunteya.
Sahajam karma kaunteya.
Sadosham api na tyajet.
Sadosham api na tyajet.
Sarvarambha hi doshena.
Sarvarambha hi doshena.
Dhumena agnir ivavrataha.
Dhumena ivavrataha.
Oh, my dear Arjuna, Krishna is saying here, Sahajam Karma, every activity, Sadosham, it is coming with already by default with some faults. Apinatya, again, one should not never give up one's respective duty. So, every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. That's what it is said. Dhumena Adnir Ivavrutaha. Therefore, one should not give up the work which is born of his nature. O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. So always there is fire, there is smoke. So one should not give up one's respective duty, even though there is some fault in that perspective, one should perform one's respective duties. So the examples of abominable nature are abominable natures of occupation duties are sometimes like for a Brahmana, he has to kill animals in a sacrifice. For a Kshatriya, has to be violent to kill his enemies or tell lies in diplomacy. For a Vaishya, however pious he may be, sometimes he has to hide his profit to say in business or sometimes black marketing. For a Shudra, serving a bad master. So despite these flaws, one should continue to carry out his prescribed duties, for they are born out of his own nature. Like analogy, a fire covered by smoke, although fire is pure, still there is smoke. Yet smoke does not make the fire impure. Like in winter time, one takes a stone from the fire, sometimes smoke disturbs the fire, but still one makes use of the fire despite disturbing conditions. One should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. So one may then conclude that in the material world, no one can be completely free from contamination of material nature. One should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupation duty in Krishna consciousness. Then what is self-realization? When a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Lord, all defects in that particular occupation are purified. So when the results of work are purified, when connected with devotion service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within. So everything, when it is engaged in the service of the Lord, everything becomes purified. So by the process, we also become pure. So next verse, Krishna talks about this concluding perspective, this verse and next verse about this Swadharma Karna. So please repeat after me. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra.
Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra.
Jitatma Vigata Spruhaha.
Jitatma Vigata Spraha.
Naishkarmya Siddhim Paramam.
Naishkarma Siddhim Paramam.
Sanyasena Adhikachyati.
Sanyasena Adhikachyati.
Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra.
Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra.
Jitatma Vigata Spruhaha.
Jitatma Vigata Spraha.
Naishkarmya Siddhim Paramam.
Naishkarma Siddhim Paramam.
Sanyasena Adhikachyati.
Sanyasena Adhikachyati.
So Krishna is saying one can obtain the results of renunciation, sanyasena, simply by self-control and by becoming unattached to material things. Asakta buddhihi vigata jvaraha. So by he becomes jitatmaha, he becomes jitatmanaha, he can conquer himself. So then unattached to material things and disregarding material enjoyment. This is Naishkarmya Siddhim Paramam. This is the highest perfection stage of renunciation. So, who is a sannyasi? A Krishna conscious person is a real renunciant or a sannyasi, because he knows everything belongs to the Lord, everything has to be utilized only for the service of the Lord. So, he is detached for his personal self. He knows everything has to be engaged in the service of the Lord, so he is not attached to anything else. So, real renunciation means one should always think himself as part and parcel of the Lord. So, he is, because of the Lord, he is there, that's why. Therefore, he has no right to enjoy the results of his work. Because the results are bestowed by the Lord, we cannot claim this is because of my endeavor. Like this, because this chapter started with 5 factors of action where the result is sanctioned by the Paramatma. So unless Lord sanctions, we cannot enjoy the result. So since the Lord is the proprietor of the result, so we cannot claim ourselves to be the cause of the result. So since he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the results of his work must be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord. So Krishna conscious mentality gives real satisfaction because he is acting for the Supreme. He is not attached to anything material and he becomes accustomed to not taking pleasure in anything beyond the transcendental happiness derived from the service of the Lord. And it automatically gives freedom from all reactions of his past activities without even accepting the so-called order of renunciation. Like quoting from 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yastu Atmarati Revasyat, one who is satisfied in himself, has no fear of any kind of reaction from his activity, and it is considered as Yoga Ruda, the perfection of yogic stage. So now Krishna concludes his perspective of Varnashrama system and following one's respective duty in this verse. So please repeat after me. Siddhim prapto yata brahma.
Siddhim prapto yata
Brahma.
Tatapnoti nibodhame.
tatapnoti nibodhame.
Samse samase naiva kaunteya.
Samasenaiva kaunteya.
Nishta jnanasya yapara.
Nishta jnanasya yapara.
Siddhim prapto yata brahma.
Siddhim prapto yata brahma.
Tatapnoti nibodhame.
Tatapnoti nibodhame.
Samase naiva kaunteya.
Samasenaiva kaunteya.
Nishta jnanasya yapara.
Nishta jnanasya yapara.
So, O Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Siddhim prapto yata Brahma. So now Krishna is saying, one who achieves the perfectional stage of Brahman, Tata apnoti nibodhame. I am going to explain to you how to achieve this perfectional stage of Brahman. Samasenaiva. So summarily, I am going to elaborate. Nishta jnanasya vaparaha, this stage of knowledge by which one becomes transcendent. So here is saying, O son of Kunti, Kaunteya, learn from me, nibodhame. In brief, samasenaiva, how one can attain to this supreme perfectional stage, siddhim prapta yatha brahma, and by acting in this way, nishta jnanasya yapara, which I shall summarize now. So which is nibodhame, that is samasenaiva. Then Krishna is explaining this perspective, how. So here the Lord describes for Arjuna how one can achieve the highest perfectional stage simply by being engaged in his occupational duty, that is performing that duty for the Supreme Lord. So one attains the supreme stage of Brahman simply by renouncing the result of his work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So what is the in clue for us? So one can attain simply by renouncing the results of his work for the satisfaction of the Lord. So now in the next 4 verses, Krishna talks about the perfection of knowledge in attaining in Krishna consciousness. So this is a 3-verse sequence. Please repeat after me. 3 verses will be there. Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto.
Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto.
Dharaya atmanam niyamyacha.
Dhrutyatmanam niyamacha.
Dhrutya atmanam niyamyacha.
Dhritya atmanam niyamacha.
Shabdadin vishayam stekva.
Shabdadin visayam tyakta.
Ragadvesho vidashyacha.
Ragadvesho vidashcha.
Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto.
Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto.
Dhrutya atmanam niyamyacha.
Dhritya atmanam niyamacha.
Shabdadin vishayam stekva.
Shabdadin visayam tyakva.
Ragadvesho yudashyacha.
Ragadvesho yudashcha.
Vivikta sevi laguvasi.
Vivikta sevi laguvasi.
Yata vakaya manasaha.
Yata vakaya manasa.
Dhyana yoga paranityam.
Dhyana yoga paranityam.
Vairagyam samupashritaha.
Vairagyam samupashritaha.
Vivikta sevi laguvasi.
Vivikta sevi laguvasi.
Yata vakaya manasaha.
Yata vakaya manasa.
Dhyana yoga paro nityam.
Dhyana yoga paro nityam.
Vairagyam samupashritaha.
Vairagyam samupashritaha.
Ahankaram balam darpam.
Ahankaram balam darpam.
Kamam krodam parigraham.
Kamam krodam parigraham.
Vimuchya nirmamah shanto.
Vimuchya nirmama shanto.
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpati.
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
Ahankaram Balam Darpam.
Ahankaram Balam Darpam.
Kramam Krodam Parigraham.
Kamam Krodam Parigraham.
Vimuchya Nirmama Shanto.
Vimucha Nirmana Shanto.
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
So in this, Krishna is explaining about all the qualities of the person who has attained the Brahman stage. So with that perspective, we'll understand what are the qualities. First one is Buddhya Vishuddhya Yukto, being purified by his intelligence, and Vishuddhaya by controlling of the mind with determination. Dhrutya Atmanam Niyamyacha, Dhrutya by purified intelligence and then controlling the mind with determination. Then Niyamansha Shadda Adin Vishayam Stekva, giving up the objects of sense gratification. Raga Dvesha Vidashacha, and being freed from attachment and hatred. Vivikta Sevi Laguasi, one who lives in a sacred place and one who eats very little. And Yatava Kaya Manasaha, one who controls his body and the tongue and everything. Then Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam, who is always in trance. And one Vairagyam Samupashritaha, one who is full, one who is detached. Ahankaram, one who is without false ego. Balam Darpam, false strength, false pride. Kamam Krodam Parigraham, lust, anger, one who has given up all this Parigraham. Vimuchya Nirmama Shanto, one who does not accept material things. So then Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpati is said to be, such a person is certainly elevated to the point of self-realization. So with that perspective, these are the qualities of one who has reached to the platform of Brahman realization, that is liberated state. So when one is purified by knowledge, he keeps himself in the mode of goodness. So thus one becomes the controller of the mind and is always in trance. Because he is not attached to the objects of sense gratification, he does not eat more than what he requires and he controls the activities of his body and mind. Because he has no false ego, because he does not accept the body as himself. Nor has he a desire to make the body fat and strong by accepting so many material things. Because he has no bodily concept of life, he is not falsely proud. He is satisfied with everything that is offered to him by the grace of the Lord. And he is never angry in the absence of sense gratification. Nor does he endeavor to acquire various sense objects. Thus he is completely free from false ego and he becomes non-attached to all material things. And that is the stage of Brahma Bhuta, self-realization. So when one is free from this material concept of life, he becomes peaceful and cannot be agitated. That's why he is Shanta, peaceful. Now the further qualities, final qualities of this Brahma Bhuta stage are enumerated here. Please repeat after me. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma.
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma.
Na sochati na kankshati.
Na sochati na kankshati.
Samah sarveshu bhuteshu.
Samah sarveshu.
Madbhaktim labate param.
Madbhaktim labate param.
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma.
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma.
Na sochati na kankshati.
Na sochati na kankshati.
Samah sarveshu bhuteshu.
Samah sarveshu bhuteshu.
Madbhaktim labate param.
Madbhaktim labate param.
So Krishna is saying here, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, one who is in that Brahma Bhuta state, self-realized state, he is Prasannatma, very peaceful man. Na sochati, na kankshati. Neither he laments for something, nor he aspires for something. Samah sarveshu bhuteshu, he is equal towards all living entities. Mad bhaktim labate param. When he comes to this stage, then he attains that pure devotional service unto the Lord. So one who is just transcendently situated, Brahma Bhuta, at once realizes the supreme Brahman. So he never laments nor desires to have anything. That is na sochati na kankshati. He is equally disposed to every living entity. Samas sarveshu bhuteshu. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Mad bhaktim labate para. So here, pure devotional service includes Brahma Bhuta stage. That is the stage of liberation or oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto Him. So we have to be in quality with the Lord. In quantity, we are different. In the absolute conception, there is no difference between served and the servitor. Yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense, because everything is the energy of the Lord. Everything is engaged in the energy of the Lord. In that way, everything is the Lord's energies. But there is a distinction who is serving and who is receiving that service. So in the material concept of life, when works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotion service, there is no misery, because everything is for the satisfaction of the Lord, no anticipation, no expectation failure, so no misery. So pure devotion service fulfills all criteria of Brahma Bhuta stage. That is, he is joyful. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. And he never laments or desires. Because he does not lament for anything material loss or gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. Because he has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows everything about the Lord, because he knows he is a servant of the Lord, he is not carried away by material perspectives. Then Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu is equally disposed towards every living entity, because he does not see someone as higher or lower. Everybody, according to their dharma, they have received various bodies. So higher and lower positions are ephemeral, they are temporary. The stone and gold are of equal value, because their source is from that mines, everything is a stone. Later it becomes purified. So attitude of a pure devotee towards others' positions, that idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality is like a spiritual suicide. It is hellish. And the idea of attaining heavenly kingdom is phantasmagoria. It is imagination. It is like a dream. Senses are like serpents whose teeth are broken, so they do not act. Once for a devotee whose poison is removed, the senses are like serpents which cannot be acting. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant. Even Brahma to an ant, everybody are the same living entities. For a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha or spiritual sky, because for him, he is engaged in the devotion service of the Lord. He sees everything in the connection with the Lord, so he sees everything as Vaikuntha. So what is the difference between ultimate realization? For an impersonalist, Brahma Bhuta means becoming one with the Absolute or merging into the Lord. For a personalist, Brahma Bhuta means to go still further to become engaged in pure devotion service in the Vaikuntha Lokas. Then how can one achieve such a stage? Is by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotion service. Like in one lecture, Prabhupada says, there is no anxiety. You can see practically. We have no anxiety. What shall I eat in the evening? What shall I eat tomorrow? There is no bank balance. There is no money. There is no anxiety. We know certain that is, as soon as we go chant Hare Krishna, Krishna will send us everything. That is actually a fact. If you study our activities, you will see practically it is so. Na sochati, na kamshati. We have no hankering, no lamentation. Suppose we have got $1,000 and somebody takes away. It happens so. Somebody comes and mixes with us and takes away some money. So we are not very sorry for that. We think Krishna gave us, Krishna has taken away. It doesn't matter. Na sochati, na kamshati. Then one more place. Prasanna Atma means jubilant. You will find all our boys and girls, they are always jubilant. Unless they are jubilant, they cannot dance in this way. They are not dancing dogs. They are feeling jubilant and therefore they are dancing. This is the position of Brahma Bhuta Prasanna. Prasanna Atma, unless one is very satisfied, he cannot be jubilant. He should be morose. He cannot dance. He cannot chant. So quoting from 4th canto Bhagavatam, Navyavad Dhrudaye Yajno Brahmaitad Brahmavadivihi Na Muhyanti Na Sochanti Na Hrushyanti Yato Gataha. Always engaging in the activities of devotion service, devotees feel ever increasingly fresh and new in all their activities. The all-knower, the super soul within the heart of a devotee makes everything increasingly fresh. So this is known as the Brahman position by the advocates of the Absolute. In such a liberated stage, Brahma Bhuta, one is never bewildered, nor does one lament nor become unnecessarily jubilant. This is due to the Brahma Bhuta situation. So this is the definition of Brahma Bhuta given in Bhagavatam. So till now, whatever we have heard, these are some of the questions. Please try to answer me. Let us see how much we can remember. So Lord's external energy is the dash of his internal energy.
Reflection.
So perverted reflection.
Perverted reflection.
Yes. So whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will attain
Perfection.
yes, he will attain highest perfection. Param Siddhi. Anything done for personal sense gratification is a cause of
Lamentation.
bondage. Krishna conscious person is a real,
Sannyasi.
yes, he's a real renunciant, sannyasi. So what is real renunciation?
Who is Krishna consciousness? Who is actually
I think it is a person who's a master over his senses and doesn't lament.
whose
If a
all
good or bad.
activities are in
I
Krishna.
think real renunciation is like do not expect any fruits for the work or service you have done and leave it to the hands of Krishna is real renunciation.
All of you are little correct. The correct answer is one should always think that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and engage the fruits of the work in the service of the Supreme Lord. This is what the real renunciation is. So actual perfection of knowledge is attaining
Samaha sarva bhuteshu is actual perfection of knowledge.
it is Krishna consciousness. We come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. So what is Brahma Bhuta stage? This is the answer now what you are supposed to be.
Prabhu, when you see everybody and everybody as same and you see Paramatma in everybody and you attain the stage wherein you eat less and you lament, you don't lament and na sochati, na kankshati, all those things will bring you to the Brahma Bhuta stage.
Yes. So when a person is free from false ego and he becomes non-attached to material things, that is the stage realizing Brahman perspective. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.